Have you ever looked at your grocery store cart and thought, wait, who's actually in control of my food, me or the system? If you've ever felt nostalgic of the old way of farming or wished you knew the person behind your milk, meat, and veggies, you are not alone. A lot of us are craving real food, real farmers, and real community again. Welcome back to Dawn's Dirt. I'm Dawn, and I help everyday people, small farmers, build a farm-to-table business, get creative with what they already have, and take back a little power in this wild food system of ours. Today, I'm sitting down with Tristan Swartz, a 6th or 7th generation dairy farmer from Wisconsin, whose Facebook page has absolutely exploded. He's milking cows in an old stanchion barn with wrong quote-unquote equipment, leaving calves on their mamas, and somehow making it all work in 2025. We're talking old school dairy, 140-hour farm weeks, creativity, community, and what happens when a farmer quietly says, no, I'm not playing by your broken rules anymore. By the end of this episode, you'll see why Tristan's so-called doing it wrong dairy might be exactly what's right for our future food system, and what that could look like in your own life and in your own community. Stick around because this conversation just might change how you see the next glass of milk. Welcome to the show today. I'm so excited to have you, Tristan. And so you have been this internet sensation just in the last, 2 months, I think? Your Facebook page has blown up and people really want to see who you are. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name's Tristan Swartz. I'm a dairy farmer in Gilman, Wisconsin. I'm 37 years old, and I've been farming and milking cows here for 12 years.
I love it. I love it. And you're only 37 years old. I'm older than you, sir. I'm 44. So yeah, wow. Good. So you've been a farmer your entire life.
Yeah, I grew up on a farm. My dad had me milking cows when I was 4, had me running combines and tractors when I was 5. And so I've been around it since birth. I was born in August, and my dad mounted a car seat in the combine in September. And so I've been riding in equipment since I was a month old, if that.
Wow. And that's what farmers do. I think that's why I'm doing my podcast actually as well, is to just connect people to farming and realizing what it's all about. And so you were in the car seat in the combine, and then you were driving a combine or a tractor at what age?
I drove the combine to the barn when I was 4, and I was baling hay at 6 or 7, pulling a hay wagon, picking up bales, I think at 5. Yeah, I've been farming quite a while.
I love that. And so would you say that would have been child labor, or did you thoroughly enjoy it to the heart and soul of who you are?
Oh, I absolutely loved it. I mean, it's none of it has ever felt like work. And I mean, besides that, we always kind of joked my dad didn't want kids. He just wanted a hired man he didn't have to pay. And so that's kind of how it happened.
That sounds about right. So I don't know if you know much about me, but I had a vegetable farm for many, many years. I was raised in a vegetable farm, and I had a vegetable farm with my children as well. And yeah, we worked. I the only job I ever got fired from was when I was working for my dad. He said, I asked him to leave the job or something. And he said, if you go in the house, you're going to get fired. And I said, well, then I quit or something like that. And next thing you know, he's stomping in the house saying, you just get your butt back out there and get back to work, because you can't quit and you can't get fired. Like there's no choice on a farm. And so was it like that on your farm? Was it a big farm or a little farm or a mid-sized farm? Or yeah, tell us more about your childhood and your farm.
It was kind of funny you say that. My dad fired every one of his nephews. I mean, anybody family that worked for him. And the thing is, he couldn't fire me because I had to live there. So, but my dad and my mother and their top, they were farming 1,100 acres, milking 70 cows, and they farrowed to finish 2,600 head of hogs. And my grandpa, he ran about 50 or 60 Texas Longhorn beef cattle. And it was just us. I mean, my dad didn't hire anybody. We always had a couple of the old local guys around working. But when the dairy market crashed in the early 90s, my dad quit milking cows. When hogs crashed in the mid 90s, he quit raising hogs, and we grain farmed and row cropped clear up until I moved up here. And from when I was 17, well, I left home when I was 17, joined a custom wheat harvest crew. And by the time I was 18, I had my own crew. And I was going Texas to Canada with my own combines. But I was grain farming quite a bit of ground down in Missouri. I was a sharecropper. And I got notification one day that I wouldn't get my ground anymore. And I just thought, it's time to leave. I always wanted to milk cows, and I knew I had to go somewhere that I could because the infrastructure where I was from was gone. And I always wanted to come back to Wisconsin. I found this place on accident, or this state, back when I was 19, and it took me until I was 24 to come back. But it's kind of funny. I farm with a lot of my machinery is older equipment than my dad had when I farmed when I was a kid. And he always kind of gives me a lot of trouble that I've got a bunch of big new modern equipment, yet it's still 30 years old. But yeah, and I think I'm the sixth or seventh generation farmer.
Hey friends, on Dawn's Dirt, we get real about growing food, farming, homesteading, living free, and digging into the stuff that actually matters. If you're loving the dirt we're dishing out, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow on your favorite social media platforms. That's how we keep growing this community of badass, soil-covered, chicken-loving, freedom-chasing humans. Like and subscribe to me on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. Come be part of the movement. I found you on the internet. That's how I found you too, is I just was scrolling through and you popped up and your video popped up and it popped up again and it popped up again. And I think that's why you're going crazy on the internet, is because you're just so old school. You remind me of my childhood. So I grew up going to my grandparents' dairy farm, and when I see your dairy barn, it's a little bit opposite, but it's the same stanchion kind of barn with the same old school, pulsator milking machines. And even watching you, I can picture my grandpa didn't milk the cows, my uncle did, and I can picture he was smoking a cigarette in the barn, doing exactly like you do. You just bring me back, 40 years in time, 30, 40 years in time, to just spending time at my grandparents' place. And I think that's why you're blowing up, is because you've got the old tractors, because you're using the older barn, because you're just doing it the old school way. You're just an old school, old soul farmer. And I think that's why people are attracted to you and attracted to hearing your stories. And how's it been being on the internet? Because you went from you're a farmer, that's who you are, heart and soul, to being this internet sensation, actually. Like, how's that been for you?
It's been really different. And especially, I think within the first week, I had over 3,000 messages on my Facebook account. And my phone, I wish I could have got a video of it. My phone was sitting on my desk and it was just rattling all day. And I just saw, what is going on here? But it's kind of funny. You talk about 40 years in the past. Most kids grew up hearing fairy tales and stuff like that. My bedtime stories were about farming in the 60s, farming in the 70s, bank foreclosures. I knew about the 80s farm crisis when I was like 5 because my parents just got out of it. And then I was kind of raised also by this adopted grandpa that he lived on our farm. It was a generational friendship. We knew his family for like 70 years. But so in my mind, that's what farming was. And then when my dad would send me to go help neighbors, it was all the old school farming. And they'd tell me stories about it. And all of them didn't really like change. I mean, and that kind of rubbed off on me. But now with the internet, what's the coolest part about all this to me is I've been able to talk to farmers all over the world. And the amount of things I have learned that's still old school, but I can apply it to my own operation. My word, that's been the most invaluable thing about all this. But the people I have met, oh, words just can't describe that. I mean, I don't care how any of this ever turns out, but the people I have met has just made it all worth it.
I love that. It's just teaching people and showing people a different way. So I actually do farm to table coaching now. I teach people how to do farm business now. I was a vegetable farmer for many years. Unfortunately, I had to sell out 2 years ago. And so now I'm teaching people how to do agritourism, how to do farm to table sales, how to be creative. And I had this old pig barn on my farm. It was an old barn full of junk, and I looked at that old pig barn and I thought I saw potential in it. And so what I did was I ripped the half the roof off. Well, I had help, but I ripped half the roof off and I put a greenhouse roof on it. It was facing south, and I turned it into my lettuce operation. And so I grew thousands and thousands and thousands of heads of lettuce just in this old pig barn. And so that's what I teach my clients now is I actually teach them to use the resources they have. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're using the resources you have. And again, that's why I'm so like fascinated with your page is because you're dairying old school ways. You're using the older tractors, you're using the older implements. You're doing it the way, they did it in the 80s, and it's working for you. You're not having to pay for that $1 million combine. So how is it working out for you on a like don't tell us your finances, but like is it working for you? Are you able to put food in your own table, sir?
Yeah. I mean, I'm like all the other farmers. I'm broke. It's just how it goes. But I mean, it's been rough, but the way I kind of do that to myself because I've got such a soft spot for animals. And my only hobby in the world is cattle sales. And I watch them online or I go to them. And if I've got a few extra dollars together and I see a cow with a personality, I'm like, yes, come home. But on the financial side of it, for what I can produce milk for is very profitable. Now, and that's what terrifies me when I see 99% of dairies or 90% of dairies aren't like mine. I worry, how are they making a living? And it really made me doubt the way that I was farming because I didn't really see many other people doing it that way. And so I thought, well, maybe I'm wrong. But then I start watching all the people that quit, and I'm like, well, how they afford, to have a robot to milk 50 or how they afford to have a tractor 30 years newer than mine. And I was talking to my good friend Tom about that. And he said, well, maybe they couldn't. That's why they're selling. And I thought, I never thought of that. But before I forget, you talk about vegetables. The only experience I've had with that, I had a job harvesting tobacco. And we would start chopping tobacco at 5:30 in the morning before the sun came up. But when we get done with tobacco in the afternoon, we'd go to the watermelon patch, and I'd pick watermelons till 10, 11 o'clock at night. And my word, vegetable farming is one of the hardest things, and I just really respect people that do that. But yet people look at milking cows the way I do, and they think, oh, that's got to be one of the hardest things. And like, it's just work. I mean, you don't think anything of it. Yeah, there's days you don't like it, but you're not, you just do it.
For sure. And I think that's the thing that people don't understand. When I had my farm too, I was working, 60, 70, 80, 90 hour weeks, and I loved it. I loved doing the physical labor. I loved doing, I did farmers markets. So I very much love people. So I was selling my produce at farmers markets and direct marketing everything. But it doesn't feel like work. When you're a farmer, that's the thing that people don't understand. When you're a farmer, it does not feel like work. It's just a part of who you are. And I remember going out to the barn with my uncle, in the mornings or in the evenings, and it was very peaceful. You talk about being in your barn and it being very peaceful. And it's truth. Like I sit there and I just take it in and I hear what you're saying and I see what you're doing and I can just yeah, it just brings me back. And so farming it's a lot of hard work, but the it's not work when you do it. So you're working from 5:30 in the morning until 10 or 11 at night. Do you still do that?
Uh, oh yeah, I mean, I don't have any hired help. So I do all my own farming. I've got a really good kid in town that I can get part-time. Anytime I call him, I'm like, "Hey, I need help." And he always says he doesn't want to charge me. Every time he comes, I put a handful of cash in his hand. But I mean, I would love to hire somebody full time, but I can't afford it because I believe in paying people what they're worth. And I'd worked on a lot of farms when I was a kid, and I'm not going to say all of them were this way, but my word, they didn't pay anything. And then they'd sit and complain that they couldn't find anybody good to help. And but anymore, I run from usually about 6 in the morning till midnight. Now, like during field work time, I think my record was in a 7 day period. I put in 142 hours. I was getting like three some hours of sleep at night. And in that week period, the weather had broke and I got all my corn planted, all my new seeding planted, all my first cutting hay put up, and it was just me and my dad. And I had my liquid manure tank crew come and they hauled out my liquid manure, and my word, this place was just a madhouse. And I remember we got done on Father's Day morning. It rained. And I got done milking that morning. I went in the house and I slept till milking that night. And I was just so fulfilled. And I just loved that week. I mean, it was just running, running, running. And that's what I enjoy. But like the winter months, people say, well, what do you do in the winter? I'm like, well, I got chores to do. There's times you get milking done in the morning, something breaks down. You don't get it fixed till milking time that night. But I say in the winter, if I'm not working, I'm sleeping because I don't get to the rest of the year. But I also run a small mechanic shop on the farm in the winter. So that keeps me busy.
For sure. And it's interesting to hear you say that because a lot of farmers do that. They've got a side job or a side gig or a side something to support their farming habit. And that's really what it is. You love farming so much, but the pennies, nickels, and dimes don't always add up. And so a lot of farmers work off farm to support that farming addiction. Really, it's an addiction. When I had my place, I went to the farmer's market. So I was retailing my vegetables straight to the consumer. So I guess that was kind of like my farming side hustle. And I had a store as well. But yeah, you do what you can. That's what farmers do. They do whatever they can to support the farm because it's all about the farm and the food and the animals and yeah, paying people fair. I had at one point on my farm, I had I don't know, 12 or 15 people working for me on the farm and then more outside of the farm in my stores and stuff. But yeah, I always paid them as fair as I could, as much as I could. And I always said, if I ever make the millions, I'm going to pay you way more, but I paid my people as much as I possibly could. And my farm was a break-even venture. It didn't make me a lot of money, but I loved it. And I got to the winter too, and I would get sad sometimes because the busy season ended and yeah, I slept a lot more, but I was always anticipating spring when I could just get going again, you know?
Yeah. And talk about like side ventures. I'm a rep for an auction company, Kerr Auction Service. I find them equipment and connect buyers and sellers, and I do that. Matter of fact, all this afternoon I got to do that all day. Go visit farms, and but like my shop, that draws me a lot of the income because I can do everything from 1800s blacksmithing clear up to welding with wire welders. I mean, it was funny. I rebuilt a evener hitch for a 6-horse team for an Amish guy because he couldn't find anybody else that knew how to heat up and hammer rivets to rivet something back together. And I just love that kind of work. And again, it's like I feel bad charging people for it because I enjoy it. And then when I tell people how much I'm charging them to do it, they're all, oh, you're not charging enough. I'm like, well, I work with farmers. I am a farmer. We don't have that much money. So it's just, we're better off if we're all in the same boat. I mean, I don't want to have more money than my neighbor just because I don't want that. I mean, we're stronger if we all stand together, we all help each other, and you don't see enough of that anymore. But I had a job working for a farmer out of high school that I've never had somebody pay me that good. And it was just phenomenal. And every spring he's like, I think you need a raise. And I'm like, nah, I don't need a raise. And one spring he doubled it. And I couldn't believe it. And it got to the point we were such good friends. I felt guilty taking a check from him. And he always told me, he said, I can send you to the field and you're going to farm the way that you farm, which I like. And he said, you just go do your own thing. And it got to where I'd show up and I would say, well, what are we going to do today? And he'd say, well, I don't know. What do you think? It was just fun, but he was legally blind. And I was his seeing eyes on the farm. I'd do stuff that didn't have the vision to do. But matter of fact, he was another reason I moved up here. He lost his life in a tractor accident. And I was taking care of his cattle the morning he died. And his mother, she was like a grandma to me. And she said, you need to go to Wisconsin. And I said, why? She goes, you need to milk cows. She knew how much I wanted to do it. And she milked for, I think, 60 years. And she was one of the only people where I'm from that supported me in it. And she was a very blunt woman. And I remember looking across the table at me and she said, you lost your farm. You don't want to go on the road anymore. We don't need you around here anymore. You have nothing here. And I thought, she's not wrong. But I asked her, I said, well, don't you need me to work the farm for you? And she said, no. She goes, I'm going to do you a favor. She goes, I'm not going to let you have anything to do with it. She said, I want you to go, move north, start a good life. She said, that would please me more. So that was in August. And by the next May, I was working ground in Wisconsin. So it went
Wow.
pretty fast.
I, uh, again, I could listen to you all day. These stories are fantastic, and back to that whole community thing, and with her, and with everyone that you worked with. I've heard the stories about your neighbor Tom. That's what it comes down to. It comes down to community, and I think that's part of what we've lost in society. And I think that's why people are attracted to you, is because you are that community. You are teaching people that we can have that community back. We can rely on one another. We can help one another. We don't need to gouge one another. another. We need to support one another. And I think it's those old school values that we had back in the day and that we've lost in society with our phones and with the rat race and with the new technology and everything. So you bring us back in time to when things were simpler and just you put people first and you love on your animals and you're just a good soul right to your core. It's so beautiful and honest and great to just listen to you and watch, and people can learn. I think people are going to learn from you. I think you're going to get really big. I think you're big now, but I think you're going to get even bigger.
Well, getting back on like that, my dad always, he was not the kind of man to ever ask for help, ever. And he told me a story one time. He had a bad fall, and he was one of the only people with his crops in the field. And some friends of his stopped in and said, "Do you need any help?" And he said, "I'm not going to tell you yes, but I'm not going to tell you no." And they said, "That's all we needed to hear." And so from that, I'm the same way. I don't want to ask for help. And I know how hard it is for another farmer to. And my neighbors around here, we all, we kind of know that's how we all think. And so if we're driving by and we see our neighbor, well, he's doesn't got his hay all cut yet, must be having trouble. I'll just pull in, start cutting. We don't need to ask each other. And some of the best feelings I've ever had was when I turned around in one of my fields to come back on wind and I saw tractors heading my way. That neighbors went ahead and drove over to help me. And I got so tired of not seeing that way of life anymore. And then it seems like everywhere farmers look, it's about how we need to get bigger. We need to buy this. We need to buy that. And I just wanted to do this to show people you don't need to. I'm not trying to sell anything here. All I want is I was so blessed to have all these people teach me these things. And I got to thinking, a good friend of mine in South Dakota made a comment once. He said, we're losing those guys, the guys that know how to do everything, that knew how to farm themselves. And I got to thinking, boy, that's really sad. And I thought, with social media anymore, why couldn't I show the people what I've been taught? Now, I mean, I'm not saying it's right. My way's not the only way. And I'm not saying all of my ways are the best, but they work for me. But the love on my critters, that's just that's the highlight of the job. And I mean, I worked for some farmers that they treated cattle just a number. It's all they were. But my mother, she used to take care of the farrowing house, and she'd have almost 3,000 baby pigs a year. She knew all the sows by name. She took care of all the babies, and each animal was just as important as the other. And you really learn by treating animals that way. Their personality comes out. And there's nothing cooler to me than buying a cow at a sale, because I could kind of see that look in her eyes or her mannerisms that, she wants to be a joker. She wants to be friendly. And by just letting them do whatever they want, I mean, if they want to lick me when they're milking, good, I'll pet you, and it makes life so much easier, yet so much harder. And oh, I know I've got a dozen cows in the barn that I'd be money ahead to sell them, buy something else. But they're dependable. They're not the top producers, but I can always count on them to be good. And some of them, Doesn't matter how bad of a day I'm having. If I see them, they fix my day. And I've noticed it with a lot of
Amazing.
cows too, that when they see me, oh, they perk up. And I thought, well, we take care of each other here. And when I look at all the stuff people can view in dairy, I don't enjoy watching somebody say that's cow number 616, but they don't know her. And I see very few, but I do see them videos of people loving on their cows and calling them by name. And I thought that's what I want to see more of. And I'm so glad people have found me as an outlet to see that.
Yeah, I love it. I actually bought some goats this year. So I've a little secret of mine. When I was 16, we were supposed to do this career day in high school, and I grew up on a vegetable farm, and I told my dad I actually want to be a dairy farmer. I wanted to be a dairy farmer, and I ended up a vegetable farmer just like my dad was. And but recently, after I sold my farm, I got this little place here, and I've got these little goats. And so I was milking my one little goat all summer, and it was fun. I really enjoy that. And you're right. My goats don't actually have names, but I love them. Like, they come running, they want me to pet them, they run away from me when they get out of the pen, but it's kind of fun, right? So I understand what you're saying. Like, they're hard and they're fun and they're nice and they just warm your heart when you've got a relationship with your animals. Absolutely.
The main reason I name them, it's easier for me to remember a name than a number.
For sure.
And some of
For
them,
sure.
though, they've told me what their name is. Like they remind me of somebody, and I've named a few of them from memes I've seen on Facebook. I'm like, yes, that's her. But
Yeah, I love it. You know, you were speaking earlier about jack of all trades, and I think that's true. We've lost that in society where young men, especially men, and I'm not saying women, I'm not a feminist actually by any stretch of the imagination, but young men have lost that you can go outside and you can fix anything. You can be creative and fix anything. You can fix your tractor, you can fix, whatever's broke down. And I just think we've lost that in society. And it's really cool to see you as a young man really still doing that.
well, it's like Mike Rowe said that they're teaching people not to work with their hands anymore. They're teaching people not to build things. Well, this world will crash if people can't build things. And I can remember my dad and a lot of other farmers taught me so much about the pride of doing something yourself. And my dad was, his big way he raised me was, if you need something, get it yourself, or better yet, learn to do without. And then I had a gentleman up here. He really instilled in me that if you don't know how to do something, teach yourself to do it. If you can't afford to pay somebody to do it, well, it doesn't seem like you have that much of a choice. But I see a lot of the younger generation, they don't even know they have that option. And it's just sad because if a guy knew how to weld, mechanic, plumbing, wiring, anything, you'll never want for work. You'll have it forever. And the sense of accomplishment that comes with that. I truly feel sorry for people that don't know how to work with their hands. And I'm so glad that like Mike Rowe has been a big advocate of that. And my word, I'd love to meet him just to shake his hand to say thank you for doing that. Because when I was in school was when it was really kind of starting. And they'd say, oh, you need to go to college or you're not going to be successful. They didn't mention trade schools. They didn't mention apprenticeships. And I can remember when all the ag colleges would come to talk to my ag class, my shop teacher told me, he goes, you go in the shop and do something. And I always thought that was kind of weird. And he told me later on, he goes, I didn't want you to get brainwashed. He said, you love working with your hands. He goes, you just go out there, you improve what you're doing, you'll be fine. And I'm so glad he did that. But I still had an open mind about it all.
For sure. I love to hear you talk about things like this because it is a misconception that, the education, college, university, computers, that's the only technology, that's the only way to make a living. And that's what I'm teaching people as well. It's not that way. I took an old pig barn and turned it into a lettuce house. You can, if you think outside of the box, you can accomplish a lot more and you can do a lot with a lot less. And that's how I ran my farm. Yes, I had a big fancy 36,000 square foot greenhouse and you're right. The sense of pride that I felt when I was climbing ladders and getting my boiler system going and I did that myself, right? I figured out the plumbing myself. I bought my ex-husband out and I figured it all out myself. I had guys I hired guys in to help me because I couldn't do it all myself, but the sense of pride when you have a problem and you come up with the solution and you fix it with what you have there you're right, there's a huge sense of pride and I think that's what's missing in the young people. They don't understand how to fix something or do something and accomplish something for themselves, that they've taught themselves, that they've fixed it themselves, and that gives a huge boost of self-confidence and just I just think that's so it's so cool and it's so important. Yeah.
Well, I mean, one thing I can say is I always looking back on it, I think every farmer should start out broke because if you're broke, you don't have a choice. And then when you do build up, finally get a little more comfortable, you remember that. And I mean, my grandfather sharpened sickle sections with a file. And I remember when I was a kid, I'm like, why? Why did he do that? Just buy new ones. And I remembered one fall, I was just kind of getting started up here. I didn't have the money to buy new sections for my bean head. And I went to a salvage yard and spent 2 hours taking sections off a bunch of different broken headers. And I went up to the guy that owned the salvage yard and I said, this is what I got. And he goes, sections? Most people just steal those. And I said, well, how much do you want for them? I can't afford new ones. And he just kind of brushed his hand, take them. But yet, here this fall, I could go buy a box of sections. No, I went back to the fence line. I had an old part set I got, took some off of it. So you always got to, I always say that the quickest way to go broke is to do something because your grandpa did that. But you got to remember why he did it the way he did it. And you can change all that in numerous different concepts, not just sharpening sickle sections. But I mean, like you figuring out the boiler system, I taught myself PEX plumbing just because I'm like, that'd be handy to know how to do. And so I knew a guy that did it. And I said, hey, next time you're plumbing, can I come over and watch? Yeah. And I think I've taught 10 or 12 people how to do that. And I almost think that working for a farmer is an apprenticeship system, but it's not just teaching you how to farm, it's teaching you how to think. And people say, well, what's the most important part of a farm? I think it's your mindset and thinking outside the box, like you converting a hog house into a greenhouse. That's how I think I became successful was, well, when I was a kid, my dad converted a dairy barn into a hog house because it's what we had. And I kind of joke around here, I don't use much for its intended purpose. It's just, it works for that. I'm going to use it.
For sure. Absolutely. Being creative, thinking outside the box, doing with what you have, you're going to save pennies, nickels, and dimes by doing that. And it's the principle and the sense of accomplishment, which is more than just what the dollars and cents are worth. Farming is not just about dollars and cents. Yes, you need pennies, nickels, and dimes to farm, but it's so much more than that. And I think that's what you're teaching people is that it's a bigger thing. And so let's chat about the food system. What's your thoughts on farming and our food system and the way we do our food these days?
I think that there's too much control, yet not enough, because I see the control on the farming side of it. I mean, I'm not even allowed to sell my milk to a consenting adult that wants to buy it. But when I say not enough control, the companies that make the food get way too much leeway. And I mean, they're allowed to price gouge. I mean, do all that. And that's what bothers me so much. Yes, we know there is risks involved in raw milk, in buying beef from a guy that butchered it from a tree in his yard. Why is it that the people are only allowed to not take those risks? But yet you can take a risk buying lettuce from a big company that got salmonella in it. What's the difference? And it's just because the corporations have lobbyists. They can pay off the government to control us and not control them. And just for the record, there, I know I've said a lot of those deals about the corporations. I'm not suicidal. So if I get taken out and it looks like a suicide, it wasn't me. Because it seems like a lot of people to speak out about this, they're not around very long. Well, all I can say is good luck. I'm I'm not going to be bought off, paid off, or shut up. And whenever we can control or not control, but whenever the power of what people eat can go back to themselves, that's when we're going to be a better world.
Absolutely. I've been calling our food system out for a long time, more like probably over 10 years now. In Canada, raw dairy is completely illegal. You cannot sell milk anywhere. You can't even give it away. That's worse than if you give away or if you sell drugs. Like it's insane. You can go to jail and there's huge fines and it's totally insane and it's totally wrong. I do speak out of it, but I've been saying for many years now, he who controls the food controls the people. And that's where I feel like people like you and people like me who are speaking out about our food system and speaking out about farming and agriculture and how we're doing these things. We, the people, our communities, just like you're talking about with farming, and the people in our communities, we can change our food system. We can bring it backwards, we can do things differently and we can make change. We can invoke change within our communities. That's how I believe anyway. And that's why I'm doing this podcast. That's why I'm teaching people. I teach people how to do farm to table sales and do business and do things like you're doing. Um we can be the change, and by you speaking out and doing your system here and farming and having your social media presence now, you're invoking change in people. People are attracted to you because they want something different. They want something back more organic in like how we've done it in the past. I don't know. That's just my thought.
Well, my dad always told me all it takes is one person to stand up and say no. And I kind of think back on the Revolutionary War, the shot that was heard around the world. It just took one guy saying, I've had enough. And I think that not only have food producers been pushed far enough, the people that buy the food have been pushed far enough. And I think it's eventually people are just going to say no. And whenever I always say that when I finally have enough of it, or I'm going to lose my farm, I'm selling raw milk. Arrest me. I don't care. I've got, and that's what's so sad. It's kind of a blessing and a mixed opportunity. A lot of people that did have to quit milking because they couldn't make it, they could have been that person to just say, no, I've had it, and say, this is my milk. I should be free to sell it to whoever I want, and people should be free to buy it. And if enough of those people stood up, you can't stop us all. And that's what I see. But I like that a lot of states are kind of returning the power to the people, so to say. And I pretty much know that in Wisconsin, I don't ever see raw milk becoming legal because there's too many lobbyists that are going to stop that from happening, just like in Canada. There's too much of it. There's too much money to be made off controlling the people that produce it and the people to buy it for them to ever risk giving up $1 in between. And I got a chuckle every time I hear of somebody getting in trouble for it. I'm like, good job, good for you. And but I personally, I got in trouble during COVID because I was helping farmers market their hogs that couldn't sell through slaughterhouses. So I was doing a deal on my farm. I would euthanize the pig. I would hang it up on a rail, and you could butcher it yourself. I was not doing it. And the only reason I wanted to put them down myself was I knew it was quick, it was painless, and I thought, I'm in charge of that. The government came in and quarantined me because they said, no, you're technically butchering. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just putting the animal down. And they said, it still counts. And I wanted to go to the news so bad. I wanted to get on social media and say, look what's happening. I'm not butchering, but they're trying to keep people from feeding themselves. And then I found out it was all about money. If I bought a permit to do it, well, then it was legal. And so that's where I thought, okay, a lot of this stuff is only legal for a price, punishable by fine. And when people heard that I was getting fined and all that, they're all like, we'll pay the fines, keep doing it. And I thought, yes, I'm going to. And so I kept doing it. And it even got to where they said, well, you're not allowed to do it on your own property, but you can take that pig to their property. So I set up cones in my driveway, a little 20 by 20 area, and I leased that ground on a 2-hour rental permit to the people that wanted the pig. So it was their property. And I charged them $1 lease, and you got $1 back. And that went on until the slaughter plants that opened back up. And I still have a lot of people to this day thank me for doing that, just for saying no. And many people said, if you'd have went public that the reason you wanted to be the one to euthanize them was for the well-being of the animal, there isn't a single jury in the world that would have convicted you for that.
Are you sitting on a farm or homestead that could be making you real money? Tired of guessing on how to market your products? I owned a 36,000 square foot greenhouse. I ran 2 farm to table stores. I had 30 people on payroll. I brought in $2.5 million in gross revenue in 2020, selling farm goods directly to customers. Now I teach farmers and homesteaders how to make money and save money off the land they already have. Whether you're selling eggs, beef, produce, baked goods, or anything in between, if you want to get into direct marketing and grow your sales, I'm the girl for you. Stop leaving money on the table and start putting it into your bank account. Join me at Dawn's Dirt Business Coaching and let's make your farm pay you back. Yeah, that's amazing. That's what we need more of. We need more people standing up and being creative. You figured out a way to be creative and do things within their bureaucratic box, but you were within the law, but you also said, we're not doing this. I actually had the same thing. I had a store in the city of Calgary and I had chickens and I had eggs, but legally I was not allowed to sell my uninspected eggs in this store. And I just said to that health inspector, I said, I'm going to do this. We're going to figure out a way that I can do this. I'm going to do it with or without you, but we're going to try and do it within your bureaucratic rule box. And so I figured out that if I put a fridge outside of the building with my eggs in it. It wasn't in the store, it was outside of the store, and then I could sell my eggs. And so that's how we got around, or not got around the rules. We were within the rules. We followed their bureaucracy, but it was in a different way. And so that's where we need to, it comes to the creativity. It comes to, leasing land to the consumer. It comes to, all the different things to take back our system within the boxes that they're trying to put us into. But you, sir, me, lots of other people, we don't fit inside boxes. I don't like a box. I don't fit inside of a box. I will probably go to jail myself for being outside of the box, but I'm prepared for it. Put it on camera and get it out there because I'm not going to go quietly. My mouth, I will go kindly. I will be, I won't fight like boom, boom. I won't fight, but I sure will use my tongue and I will not go out quietly. That's one thing for sure. That same health inspector during COVID. So I'm unvaccinated. And that same health inspector, I said to her, I sent her an email one time and I said, just because something is law or mandate doesn't make it moral or ethical. And I said to her, we were in a different market one time and she said, I said to her, I said, did you get my email? And she said, I don't like you, Don. And I said, I don't really care. Like, you know, that's where it's at. Like we, the people, have morals and ethics, and we want to do what we want to do with our own bodies and with our own food system, and with what we want to eat and what we want to drink and how we want to do things. You're right. It's about dollars and cents and control.
Well, that's like uh, I had a certain person that's kind of in control tell me that I wasn't allowed to leave the baby calves with their mothers. And that really bothered me. And I was kind of thought, no, this is the hill I'm going to die on. And I said, well, write me up for it, fine me for it, whatever. I'm not going to not do it. But I said, I would like you to do me a favor. I want to get all this on video record that I am not allowed to leave the calves with their mothers because I want the general public to see it's not me doing it, it's you. Because dairy farmers are given such a bad rap because they take the calves away from the cows. And that's something consumers don't like. There's a reason behind it. And I mean, I don't discredit anybody that does that. But in my operation, I like it. And so when I told this certain person that, they said, oh, I think we can forget this. And I thought, yeah, okay, sounds good. And I thought, so it was fine for them to make us look bad, but we couldn't make them look bad. And I've thought about that day for many years. And I thought a lot of could have changed that day. Because if I would have said, okay, fine, I would have been going against what I believe was morally right. And I think it would have really bothered me that I gave up my morals and what I believe in that easily. And I thought, I always wanted to go up to every consumer I see and say, does it bother you that I leave the baby calves with the cows? I don't think it would. But they say it's all about health and safety of the mother and the baby. Well, didn't cows take care of their calves for thousands of years? Come on now. I mean, yes, you lose some my way, you lose some the other ways. And it that's life. And I think the more that farmers try and control life instead of letting it do what it does naturally, and with animals, with land, why fight it? Don't try and make it submit. Instead, work with it. And whenever I have the experts come in and say, no, you need to do this, you need to do that, it's about making it submit for their profit. And so when
Yeah.
I see videos of these young farmers like me, and they're out there grazing cattle in the woods, they're fencing off land that can't be cropped to raise livestock on, they're working with the land. And by doing that, it's better for everybody because we're making the world a better place. And I think the sooner consumers see that we're not the monsters, we're betrayed. I mean, there's always an exception to everything. But I know more farmers that they do what's best for the world by instead of going out and working up land that shouldn't be farmed because of erosion and all that, they're running livestock on it, goats and sheep and cows and regenerative grazing. And so when I hear the experts saying farmers need to be green, they need to be um, eco-friendly, that's what we're doing. But you're trying to make us stop doing that. And that just gets to me so bad. And it's just, oh, it just burns me up because they're saying the number one thing dairy farmers need to do is be more, there's a term for it, sustainable. Well, the more a person can do for themselves and the more they can work with the land, that's the most sustainable way we can be. But
Absolutely.
but yet the more they push it, you can only be sustainable if you buy this. What is sustainable about that? And granted, people tell me that if I bought some of that stuff, I wouldn't wear my body out so much. Okay, well, it's what this is for. And I don't want to be in my coffin and people say, oh, he looks so young. I want people to look at me and go, damn, he used it for all it was worth. But the world will be a
Absolutely.
better place.
For sure. I've really enjoyed hearing you say all this because it's the truth. We've gone away from things. And I've often said, too, this whole sustainable thing, this whole green thing, it's all about dollars as well. It's just on a different side of the fence. It's not, the left talks about the corporations, but the right, like the left is about their version of corporations. It's the same, sorry, farmer term, same shit, different pile, right? And so we, the people, need to come together, stop being left and right, stop fighting with one another, and realize we can do things different. We can build our communities back. We can change our food system. We can work with one another, and we need to bring it smaller again. I think this is my personal opinion, but I think the way to feed the world is if the world starts going back to old school farming where you farm in your communities, you work with your neighbors. I have vegetables, you have milk. Let's barter and trade with one another, and let's work together as a team with the resources we have. I think that's the way of the future. The way of the future. So I have a question though, because I did hear you say on one of your videos that you leave your calves with your dairy. And I was curious about that because every dairy that I've ever been, talked to or been involved in or seen, they all take their calves away. Even my grandparents did. So what are the logistics on how you do that? Like, how do you do that and still milk your cows?
Well, I read a story out of, I believe it was Denmark several years ago that was talking that dairy cows that are allowed to have their calves on them actually produce more milk. because it releases more oxytocin in them because they're mothering their calves. And I always kind of laughed. I'd have a dairy calf escape from my calf barn and it'd go live with the beef cows and it would nurse off a beef cow and that calf would grow like a weed. And it was also less effort on my part because if mama was raising the calf, I didn't have to. And so we started doing that, and these calves just thrived. And my price of production dropped because I wasn't having to buy calf feed. I wouldn't have to get calf starter because this calf would nurse on mama and she'd watch what her mother was eating. So, kind of the monkey see, monkey do principle. And so that calf would, by the time that calf was ready to be weaned, it was already on feed, larger weight. It already knew the barn, it knew the pasture. And as the years went by of doing this more, the cows come in the barn so much easier because that's where they were raised. Now, I mean, it's not always easy because trying to bring dairy cows in with their calves is like trying to herd cats. And I mean, the calves just scatter and run around. And then when they come in the barn, when I'm trying to milk, I try and lock them out during milking because the calf will see me milking mama and tear the milker off. And, but the health benefits that I've seen to raising calves that way will never make me go back. And
Hey,
I just, and that mothering instinct keeps getting better and better. And when I buy cows from another farm where they didn't mother them like that, they see a cow nursing a calf and their eyes light up. Like, I remember that. And while it's very unconventional that I do that, I encourage everybody to try it.
I've got a quick logistical question around that. So you just leave your calves with your cows all the time, and the only time you lock them away from the mom is when you're trying to milk your cows in the barn. Is that correct?
Yes.
Wow. That's totally different than anyone I've ever, even the odd person that has their cows up here that they milk them once a day or whatever, like for their own personal use in Canada here. They always lock the calf away for 12 hours before they milk. And so your calves just stay with your cows and so they just produce that much more.
Yeah. I mean, and the other thing about that, my calves are drinking more and they're drinking more often. So instead of them only getting fed morning and night or during a 12-hour period, if they wake up from a nap and think I'm hungry, I want a snack, they can go right up to mama and nurse. But I usually leave the calves with mama for 2 months and then I separate them and I put them with what I call the nurse cows. And the nurse cows, I leave them in there for another 2 months. I mean, there's nothing cheap. There's not a cheaper way to feed calves than feed a cow and she produces the milk. And so I've got a lot of older cows that were good mamas and they just love being in the nurse pen because they get to raise all these calves. And I can just go in there a couple times a day. How y'all doing? Okay. And but I didn't. And I also feel that by the calves being with the cows all the time, I'm with the cows all the time. So the calves are with me, not just twice a day. And some of them really grow up to, they just love me. And it makes life so much easier when you break in a heifer and she's not scared of you or she's not, what are you doing? And I've even got some heifers that they're getting ready to have calves here after a while. but they broke through the dry cow fence, got in with the milk cows, and they're already starting to come in the barn every time. And I've got collars on them already. They've let me pet them, handle them. And I just thought, boy, for putting in less work, it sure saved me a lot more.
Wow, I love that. You know, you've just recently put your name on Facebook there. You started your Facebook page and you've called it Doing It Wrong Dairy. And I have to challenge you a little bit on that, sir. I think you're not doing it wrong. I think you are doing it right. It should be doing it right dairy, not doing it wrong dairy. I This has been fascinating to listen to, and you are one very, very, very smart farmer, and I really appreciated this time. Wow.
Well, that was the whole thing that got doing it wrong, the name. I'd tell people what I was doing, and they're like, oh, you're doing it wrong. And I just finally, we had enough of it one day, and I said, that's it. That's the name of the farm. And everybody says my slogan should be, we're doing it right by doing it wrong. And I'm glad other people think that way because I honestly felt that I was wrong because I didn't know anybody else that did it. And it got to eating on me. And so when I realized I could make these videos and people started saying, oh, we do that, or we used to do that, I'm like, it it helped me so much, my mental health on that. And I'm glad that it's doing the same for other people, that you're not alone. They just don't like spreading the word about farmers like us because we don't make anybody else any money.
Wow, you know, you're an inspiration, honestly, an inspiration to young farmers. This is what I'm now teaching on, right? I coach people, I coach my clients on how to do it wrong in different ways, thinking outside the box, doing the food system different, and that's exactly what we need to do. We need more farmers like you. We need more farmers doing it wrong, quote unquote, because you're actually doing it right. And you're right, follow the dollars and cents. It's about bureaucracy, it's about power, and it's about control. And I appreciate so much that you're calling it out. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much. It's truly been enjoyable, and I'm glad there's people like you helping us get our story out there because we
Yeah, we
people need to quit being quiet about it. Speak up. I mean, you can't take us all.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's like the have you ever seen the movie? You probably don't watch much TV or many movies, but there's a movie called Ants, and the grasshoppers are in control, but they say at one point, "Man, don't let the ants get out of line because if one ant stands up, there's more ants than there is grasshoppers." And so we the people can take this all back. We don't need our government to do this for us. We can do this for ourselves. Thank you very much. So,
So many people that have had my back the way I'm farming since I came out and showed everybody. I'm in their corner too. I mean, we all need to stand up and next to each other. And once we do that, it only takes a couple of us. And I see the momentum moving. But the problem is, usually when a momentum starts, somebody gets paid along the way and it stops. And I just think the farmers, we're not going to do that. I mean, you can offer to buy us off, and all we're going to do is farm, keep doing it. And I will not have somebody. It's amazing how many people have contacted me wanting me to say something and also offering to pay me something that goes against my beliefs. I will not do that. I don't get much sleep at night, but whenever I do sleep, I want to be able to.
yeah, it's so truthful, man. You're an inspiration. I can truly say this. I have a lot of respect for you. Um, yeah, I call out the system too, and I don't have a lot of respect for a lot of people, but I have a lot of respect for you. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for being on the show, and thank you for taking time for this. So appreciate your time.
I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to speaking with you again sometime. And if you ever need anything, you know how to get a hold of me. And I know people that
For
know
sure.
stuff, so I can set you all up.
I love it. I love it. Actually, what I would love to do, I would love to get on a flight sometime and come down and milk cows with you. That's what I would honestly love to do is just come work alongside you in your barn. I think that that would be so cool.
It's the closest you can get to heaven on earth. And
I believe it. I believe it.
some people have tried to tell me that I need to sponsor a Christmas with the cows because I tell people how special milking on Christmas Eve is. And I've had a lot of people that want to join me doing that. And I thought, well, this year might be the year. And
Love
because
it.
I've always spent Christmas Eve alone in the barn, usually. And I know there's a lot of other people alone on Christmas Eve. Come to the barn. You know, uh, that's what I love about Wisconsin also. If you can't find us, we're in the barn and you're welcome. But
I love it. I love it.